Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here at Traumful Reads, and in this video I thought we could go look at all the books that I read in 2018 that were actually published in 2018. I don't I don't really pre-order books, and I don't even really buy that many like brand new books like right when they come out. It's more just like if I see something I like, I get it, and just by definition, a lot of them are just like older books. So I don't have tons of new books that, like I said, are published in 2018 that I actually finished. But I do have seven. A couple of those were NetGalley books. But I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to see which books that I picked up and actually finished in 2018 that were published in the same year. So let's just get started. I have, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, seven books, and three of them, we'll go start with the first three that were the NetGalley books. And the first one is In Search of the Canary Tree by Lauren Oakes. And this was almost kind of like a memoir and a science book combined. The main thrust of the book is about conservationism and environmentalism. As this young scientist, Lauren Oakes, obviously the author, decided for some graduate research studies. She went basically into Alaska, and there's a tree known as the yellow cypress that is basically dying off, and it's kind of unclear what was causing it and that sort of stuff. So she did like some like pretty grueling like legit graduate research, like living in the Alaskan wilderness with a couple other grad students, basically measuring tree diameters and things like that, and just like looking at the undergrowth and basically how the trees were doing and all that stuff. But anyways, she goes beyond that and does like almost like sociology stuff, basically with all the different basically groups and players in Alaska that basically have a stake in the rise and fall of the yellow cypress tree, things like that. I thought it was kind of a really cool blend of basically like I said, sociology, anthropology, and kind of like a memoir and like a ton of science and environmentalism. It's just a weird kind of cool blend of subjects. At times it was kind of dry, and it like the first half is very science heavy and the second half is very like sociology heavy, so it's kind of like a weird dichotomy the way you actually read it. But overall I really enjoyed that book, and I think it just came out in November of last year. I still need to write the actual review for NetGalley, but I did enjoy that one. Alright, the next one is How to Be a Good Creature, a memoir in 13 Animals by Cy Montgomery. This is probably my favorite memoir, or just at least like a pure memoir, if that makes sense, that I read in 2018. This came out not too many months ago, and Cy Montgomery's like one of my favorite one of my favorite like life science authors now. She also wrote The Good Good Pig and also The Soul of an Octopus, which I've also read. And that one was really good as well, and lots of people love Soul of an Octopus. Now, with this book, basically, she takes different, or an encounter from 13 different animals, and she has tons of animals, basically, that have impacted her life. But she just picks 13 of the most important ones, I guess, that have either taught her something or revealed something to her. And basically, the lessons she takes from some of these encounters is just really, I don't even know how to explain. I think I've said this in one of the other videos. For example, one time she had pet chickens on her like little farm, her farmhouse, and like an ermine killed one of them, and she basically caught it. But instead of like after reflecting, so instead of being like angry at basically the wild animal for killing her chicken, she basically came away with a better understanding of both the ermine and her relationship with her own mother. And it's hard to explain, but it was actually pretty. It got deep and like heavy, like really fast. And some of the other encounters are more lighthearted and stuff. But just an overall fantastic memoir if you like memoirs, especially if you love animals. That is Cy Montgomery is definitely an author you just need to check out. That's pretty much it for that. And also, I lied. There's one more NetGalley book that I forgot to mention, or that I didn't write down. So there's actually 8 books I read that were actually published in 2018 that I read in 2018. But anyways, the one that I forgot to mention or write down is Versailles by Colin Jones. And this is about as traditional history as you can possibly get. It's really well done. It's basically just an entire account of the palace at Versailles from essentially what we know of its origins all the way down to the present day. So from basically, it's kind of like obscure hunting lodge kind of like era where basically Louis XIV's father just like liked it because it was like out in the middle like outside of Paris, but it was still like in a hunting like kind of wilderness area, all the way through Louis XIV's reign, and then kind of its decline into obscurity, like after the French monarchy kind of gets axed after a while, and then basically into the 19th and 20th centuries, and then it's kind of conservation and restoration. So, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward history. It basically just everything about the Palace of Versailles that's important is in this book. But if that's something you're interested in, you should definitely check it out. All right, the next one is The Vikings from Odin to Christ, and this is by Martin and Hannah Whittock. And that's actually a father-daughter team, which is kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever read a history book co-authored by a father-daughter team. But anyways, this book is all about basically Viking conversion from basically Norse paganism to Christianity during the Viking Age. And along with the conversion is actually more just sort of the cultural assimilation into other of the other cultures of basically Western Europe, whether that's into, like, for example, the Normans in the 10th century in northern France, or the Danelaw in England, just as some examples. And I think it's actually really well done. It's quite dry, but if you can handle like academic history and you're really interested in Vikings, that would definitely be a good book to check out. It's not a book on like Norse mythology, like Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, or if you're just into like Norse paganism, stuff like that. That's not really what the book is about. There's hardly anything directly on stuff like that. So I would not advise that if that's what you're looking for. All right, next up is an audiobook that I finished in 2018 that was also released in 2018, and it's Atlas of a Lost World Travels in Ice Age America. That's by Craig Childs. And I picked this one up because it looked like a really good mashup of genres like science, kind of exploration, and like Ice Age stuff. Just sounded really cool, which it indeed turned out to be that, so I was really well pleased with that. And one of the other reasons I picked up the audiobook was that Craig Childs has another book on my TBR known as Finders Keepers, which is basically all about the kind of the black underground, the dark underground of basically the black market of like antiquities and stuff. Basically like when archaeological sites are looted and things like that. Like, I guess that's what that book's about. But anyways, this sounds really interesting. So I was like, well, that's kind of odd to have like a book like that and then have like a book on Ice Age America. So I ended up listening to it and I really enjoyed it. And like I said, it is a good blend of different genres. Basically, we got the flora, the fauna, basically the changing environment, the different people groups, the different like locales and the different geographies of basically Ice Age America is completely covered in this book. And I just thought it was like really cool. There's lots of cool like vignettes on different things such as like flint mapping, how they made different tools out of obsidian and flint and stuff. I just thought it was really cool. And how basically different areas are totally different obviously over time, and how like, for example, like Florida, like the swamps of Florida had like a really high mastodon population apparently back in during the Ice Age. So I thought that was like really cool. But anyways, I highly recommend that if you like Ice Age stuff, or if you want to just learn how like different like locales change over time. That'd be kind of a cool one to check out. All right, so now I have 3 physical books that I actually have, and let's go with the most recent one that I've read out of the 3 is The Stowaway: A Young Man's Extraordinary Adventure to Antarctica by Laurie Shapiro, and this is about Paul Gawronski's basically expedition to Antarctica during Commander Byrd's flyover the South Pole thing, which was in the 1920s, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 1920s. But Paul Gawronski was a second generation Polish immigrant from Poland. His parents were from Poland, basically, but he grew up in New York City. But he basically stowed away on the boats of this expedition like 3 times to make sure he got like a chance to actually go. He got caught several times, but basically his perseverance, he was able to basically stay on board after a while. And basically it just covers that whole expedition and how he's like almost coming of age story, even though he was like a junior or senior in high school, or I don't know, I can't remember if he had just graduated maybe when he did that. But obviously just being like, a 17, 18-year-old city kid, and then having to grow up basically for a year on these basically expeditionary ships to Antarctica. traveling around the world and obviously around Antarctica and stuff. Obviously, grew up pretty quick, but I thought it was just kind of a neat, like, little quirky tale. I've been like on like an adventure kick, exploration kick. Didn't know how to explain that, I guess, but I read a couple books about journalists like going into like jungles and things like that. So I thought this one kind of fit the bill for like Antarctica, and I read a book on like the North Pole not too long ago either. So I liked it. It was a little dry at some points because a lot of the book, or a large portion of the book, doesn't really deal with the whole expedition because he went to Antarctica on that like kind of one expedition, obviously. But his whole career basically he doesn't revolve around Antarctica. After that, he just he goes into the merchant marines and stuff. But overall, it was still like a really cool like biography of like a really obscure, lesser known figure named Paul Glavonsky, and how like stowaways actually can become important people in their own right. So, anyways, there's that one. My least favorite book of all 2018 published ones was Sky in the Deep. This is like one of the only, I think I read like 3 or 4 YA books the whole year. It was okay. I mostly picked it up just because everyone else was talking about it, and I kind of wanted to read like a Viking fantasy book or something. But I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. I don't know if it was because of the YA thing. It wasn't like bad. I thought it was just very kind of. I don't know. It was just bland. I guess it was just kind of like safe in like every like aspect, I guess, if that makes sense. And one of the big criticisms I had of it was like the geography is like really small. There's like a couple villages, and that's like the entire world basically. I don't know. I just didn't feel it. I know a lot of people have read this. So if you're watching this, tell me your opinions on this book down in the comments below. I'd be glad to talk to you about them. Alright, and lastly, my favorite book that I read that was published in 2018 is The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, A New History of a Lost World by Stephen Bersati. And as you can see right there, it says, a masterpiece by the Washington Post. And that pretty much sums it up right there. I thought it was really well done. Also, the illustrations really like spot on this as well, which is a nice book. But anyways, basically we have Steve Bersati, who is like a really famous archaeologist now. He's discovered a couple species and stuff, but he goes throughout the whole book. He's basically talking about other archaeologists that he's like met up with, or different scientists that he's like worked with in the past at different like locales. Out in the deserts, out in the tundra, out in the Badlands, stuff like that. It's just like all over the place, just doing cool, dinosaur fossil archaeology things. I just thought that was really cool, and I've been craving like a dinosaur book like all year, and I never got one. And then I was like, this is like the one I need to get, and I got it, and I'm really glad I ended up reading it before the year was out. I just thought it was just like, if you want to learn about dinosaurs, this is literally just like the new book that you just need to get if you want to be up to date on basically dinosaurs. I was really well pleased with it. Plus, there are several like photographs and illustrations like throughout the book, just really well done, nice. Overall, like I said, just really enjoyed it. It just hit the spot for dinosaurs, hit the spot for kind of like the adventure kind of career stuff. Like I said, being an archaeologist like all over the world. Plus, I voted on it for the Goodreads Choice Awards, which it won for like the science category. So, obviously I'm in good company with The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. So there you guys have it. Those are the 7 or 8 books that I read in the month of 2018. In 2018, they were also published in 2018. So yeah, tell me what you guys thought about any of them. Just leave some comments down below. I'd be glad to talk to you about them. And also leave a comment on what your favorite book that was published in 2018 that you've read. Just leave a comment down below, like what that was and why you thought it was like so good. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave some comments down below. And always remember, read victoriously.